Hi, Stanford. Since our topic this week is pretty comprehensive, I didn't want to inundate you with just kind of one really verbose video, but I thought it would be helpful to break the topic up into kind of digestible chunks. So we got going yesterday with the liberate yourself from quality and an intro to that, and talking a little bit about tension. And I wanted to speak today about one other facet of that essay that I gave you guys. Specifically, I want to talk about this notion of the rendered life versus the implied life, and how we can kind of use these two seemingly different stories to our advantage as our book pushes on, and also how this paradigm relates to the 1200 pages equaling 300 pages. So let's start with the latter. How does the 1200 page example, saying that 300 pages will be bound and placed on the shelf, but there will be an additional 900 pages of, research writing that you have to do along the way in order to know what to render for your readers. And how does this relate to this idea of the implied life versus the rendered life? I will make the argument that you probably aren't able to tell me right now what scenes or what segments of certain scenes are going to make the final draft. It's simply too soon. You're still familiarizing yourself with the world, familiarizing with yourself with the characters, so on and so forth. It behooves us as the artists to be gathering as much data as we can. We want to kind of be rendering the majority of each scene possible. And then later on, we'll make these determinations where we look at, say, we look at scene A and we say, okay, scene A has a beginning and a middle and an ending. And I had to write all that stuff in order to learn um, really in depth about that particular tableau. But now that I know about it, I can make the educated guess that a reader probably doesn't need to see the beginning and the middle of that scene. She only needs to see the ending of that particular vignette. Or perhaps you write the beginning and a middle and an ending of scene B, and upon revisiting it, you say, all of this is germane to kind of the main external action and the internal action of my novel. So I'm going to leave this entire chunk in the book for right now. And then, kind of the latter example would be you revisit the beginning and a middle and an ending, and you say, well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to salvage a piece of this. In fact, I'm not going to be able to salvage any of it. I'm going to have to throw this in my 900 page bucket. But I'm not getting frustrated about it because as I was writing that scene, I was able to learn, detail X and detail Y about my character. And I didn't know that ahead of time. So I'm going to be able to kind of use that data to my advantage moving forward. The only way that you were able to make that thoughtful determination, though, was to give yourself the space to render the moment in its entirety. You rendered the whole beginning, you rendered the middle, you rendered the ending. And then you were able to go back and say, okay, I'm going to keep the rendered beginning. That was a really useful thing. But I'm going to take the rendered middle and an ending, and I'm going to put that over in my 900 page bucket. I'm glad I did the writing, but I'm not going to use that writing right now. And maybe we can look at a fictitious example together. So let's say there's a couple. Their names are Marty, and their name is Lindsey, and they are on their way to a friend's birthday party. You might, as the artist, want to write the entire sequence soup to nuts, meaning here are Marty and Lindsey. I think her name was Lindsay. If her name wasn't Lindsay before, her name is Lindsay now. So here are Marty and Lindsay. They're at their house. They're getting dressed. They eat a snack together. They drive over to the birthday party together. They're talking in the car. What's going on the radio? What are they seeing out the windows as they get there? They walk up, they ring the doorbell, what's going on between them as they're waiting to be let into the party. Then you would render the entire kind of party sequence. Maybe there's some sort of climactic action um, with the whole entire group. And then you might even render them, driving back, getting ready to go to sleep, taking a shower, taking a bath, brushing their teeth, what have you. You're probably operating under the assumption that there's no way you'll keep this, 30 to say 45 page moment in the book. But you're giving all these moments an opportunity to earn their space. Again, we're getting out of the theoretical. We're getting out of our educated guesses that we have in our mind. And we're giving the actual words on the page an opportunity to succeed. So maybe you knew what was going to happen when you got to the party, but because you took the time to render this moment after they rang the doorbell and were waiting to be let into the house, you would have stumbled upon this really cool conversation between them. A conversation that she would have never outlined, a conversation that she would have never planned. But these particular characters on this particular night, on this particular porch, wanted to show you this. It's our job, it's our kind of service to the novel and our service to the characters to do this kind of exploratory writing. And once we have this huge swath of material generated, then we can say this has to go in the book, so it's going in the rendered life. These other details over here can go in the implied life. 300 pages over here with the rendered life, 900 pages over here with the implied life. So it's just another way or another frame of reference for you to approach this idea of discovery writing, or this idea of exploring the worlds, exploring the consciousnesses of your characters, exploring their hearts, their biases, what they love, their backstories, their mythologies, so on and so forth. It's another way to, kind of latch on to this idea of liberty that we've been kind of talking about, where you say, man, I don't really know what's going to happen when I get them to this party, but I trust them and I trust the process enough that I'm not going to steer. I'm going to just turn them loose at the party, see what happens, and if something really juicy happens there, I'm going to shove it in, the rendered life bucket. And if nothing really germane happens, I'll happily put it in the 900-page research bucket. No harm, no foul. It's all going toward the greater good of you being able to tell your novel in the most thoughtful way. One of the things that I saw in the forums yesterday was this that somebody had quoted a former instructor in the OWC as saying, quote, or not even quote because I'm probably paraphrasing, something that she had said something to the effect of, write the book that you want to read. And I think that's fantastic advice, and I think that's something that we should definitely adhere to. All I would say about that is I think that we can push that axiom a step further. Don't just write the book that you want to read. Write the book that only you can write. Your imagination is as unique as your fingerprint. There's nobody else on the planet that has an imagination quite like yours. It's as unique as your fingerprints. Here's my imagination. I hope all of you are holding your thumbs up to show me what your imagination looks like. If that's our ultimate strength, let's make sure that we are playing to it on every page that we're putting in our book. I can't wait to see what your imagination comes up with for the rest of week 2, and I'm excited to see what your imagination comes up with week 3 through 10. If you have any questions or comments about this idea of the implied life versus the rendered life, and how maybe we have to write the moment first before we make those determinations, please post any feedback in this thread. Happy writing, Stanford.